Have you ever imagined waking up rich and going to bed broke? No war, no warning, just a brutal crash that erased billions overnight. That was 1929. But before the collapse, there was a party. The year is 1922. The Great War is over. Cities shine. Jazz plays everywhere, and Americans believe prosperity will last forever. Factories once full of cannons now produce dreams. Electric toasters, radios, refrigerators that mock the old iceboxes. New York's skyline explodes with skyscrapers. Every building feels like a champagne toast. Cars flood the streets. Henry Ford's Model T rolls off the assembly line like hot bread. 12 hours of work turn into 90 minutes. The whole country accelerates together, and then comes the fever of consumption. Want a radio? Pay later. Want a car? Pay later. Want stock in a company that makes nothing? Definitely pay later. Buy now, worry later. That was the motto. And Wall Street? It turned into Disneyland for adults. With just $10, you could buy 100 in shares. The rest was debt. But who cared? Stocks only went up. Everyone became an investor. The barber, the shoeshine boy, even the mailman. From 1924 to 1929, the market quadrupled. It was as if gravity had stopped existing, but the foundations were rotten. Farmers drowning in debt, consumers buried in installments, companies building piles of paper worth nothing. Nobody wanted to hear the pessimists. The music was too loud, and the party seemed endless, until the orchestra stopped. The crash, the day America collapsed, October 29, 1929. Black Tuesday. The market collapsed like a sandcastle. In hours, 200 billion vanished. Men fainted on the trading floor. Women cried in bank lines. Entire families lost everything. Savings, homes, futures. It was like a cruel magic trick. Now you see money, now you don't. Margin calls crushed investors. For every $10 they put in, they owed 90. And suddenly, they had to pay it all back. But they had nothing left. And the banks? Marble temples of trust crumbled, crowds lined up, doors locked, and money disappeared. Grandparents lost savings, parents lost jobs, children lost meals, and trust lost its meaning. The shock crossed the Atlantic. Europe, fragile after the war, imploded. Global trade shrank by half. It was like cutting oxygen from the world economy. The bottom, hunger, dust, and despair, the 1930s. 1 in 4 Americans out of work. Detroit, once roaring with engines, went silent. Factories were dead. Bread lines stretched for blocks. Mothers lined up at dawn for thin soup. Children fainted in classrooms, not from boredom, but because they hadn't eaten in days. And then came the sky's betrayal. The land, stripped bare by over-farming, cracked. Winds raised black clouds of dust. Storms swallowed houses, crops, livestock. They called them black blizzards. Families coughed through nights. Woke up covered in the very soil that once fed them. Millions fled west. Old cars loaded with everything they owned. Signs read, California or bust. Meanwhile, President Hoover insisted the economy was fundamentally sound. But for the people, sound was just the hard ground they slept on in cardboard shacks. They called them Hoovervilles. Newspapers used as blankets became Hoover blankets. Empty pockets turned inside out were Hoover flags. Confidence had turned into a bitter joke. The recovery, Roosevelt and a new Dawn Franklin Delano Roosevelt steps up to the podium. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. The nation holds its breath, and for the first time in years breathes hope. Young men receive shovels and green uniforms. The Civilian Conservation Corps plants trees, builds trails, rebuilds America. The Works Progress Administration raises roads, schools, bridges. Detroit's silence is replaced with hammer strikes and steel beams. The Tennessee Valley lights up. Dams rise, whole towns glow for the first time. Families gather around radios not because they could finally buy one, but because they finally had electricity to plug one in. Banks reopen with a new promise. Your money is safe. And for once it was. Then came Social Security. Not wealth, but dignity. A guarantee that no one would be forgotten. Even art found a place. Photographers and writers captured the face of resistance. The most famous and a migrant mother, eyes heavy but unbroken. Hollywood painted hope in color. The Wizard of Oz carried Americans from black and white despair into a world of technicolor dreams. And in that yellow brick road, people saw themselves walking again. Slowly, unmistakably, the machines began to hum. Cities buzzed. Hope walked back into the room. Conclusion, the Great Depression didn't end with applause. It ended with work, with blistered hands, with spoons of soup, with fragile faith in tomorrow. It was a lost decade, but also a rehearsal, a lesson in how a nation can collapse and rise again. The world didn't know it yet, but another storm was coming. Not dust this time, but fire, war, and this time the whole world would feel it.